You don't realize it at first. It starts as a small feeling, like something is off. You replay conversations in your head. You wonder, was it me? You question your reactions, your tone, your silence. But deep down, there's this quiet discomfort you can't explain. Because sometimes the problem isn't that you're too sensitive. It's that you're dealing with someone who simply doesn't understand emotions at all. And that changes everything. Imagine this. You open up to someone about something that really hurt you. Not dramatically, not loudly, just honestly. And they laugh it off, or change the subject. Or worse, they turn it back on you. You're overreacting. It's not that serious. Why are you always like this? And suddenly, you feel small for feeling something real. That's where emotional intelligence begins to matter. Because emotional intelligence isn't about being nice. It's about understanding feelings, your own and other people's. It's about awareness, empathy, control. And when someone lacks it, it doesn't just affect them. It affects you in ways you don't always notice right away. So here are 6 signs someone has low emotional intelligence. And as you listen, you might recognize someone. Or you might recognize yourself. Pause for a second. Be honest. The first sign, they invalidate your feelings. Every time you express something emotional, they shut it down. Not always aggressively, sometimes it's subtle. A dismissive shrug, a quick joke, a change of topic. You say, "That hurt me." They say, "You're too sensitive." And over time, you start questioning your own emotions. But here's the truth. Emotionally intelligent people don't need to agree with your feelings to respect them. Someone who constantly invalidates you isn't protecting peace. They're avoiding understanding. And that silence they create in you, it's not peace, it's suppression. Second sign, they struggle to take responsibility. When something goes wrong, it's never their fault. They blame circumstances. They blame other people. Sometimes they blame you. Even when it's clear. You bring up an issue calmly, they get defensive instantly. "Why are you attacking me? You always do this." And suddenly, the conversation isn't about the problem anymore. It's about their ego. Because low emotional intelligence makes people see accountability as a threat instead of growth. But here's something to reflect on. When someone can't admit they're wrong, how can they ever change? Third sign, they lack empathy. Not completely, but noticeably. They don't pick up on emotional cues. They don't notice when your energy shifts. They don't ask, "Are you okay?" And if they do, it feels automatic, surface level. You could be breaking inside and they'd still be talking about themselves. Not because they're evil, but because they don't know how to step outside their own perspective. Empathy requires emotional awareness, and without it, relationships feel one-sided. You give understanding, they give reactions. Pause again. Think of someone like this. Or ask yourself, have you ever been that person? Fourth sign, they react instead of respond. Small things turn into big reactions. A simple disagreement becomes an argument. A minor inconvenience becomes frustration. They speak without thinking. They act without pausing. And later, they might regret it. But in the moment, emotion controls them. Because emotional intelligence is the space between feeling and reaction. And when that space doesn't exist, everything becomes impulsive. You start walking on eggshells around them, choosing your words carefully. Not because you're afraid of conflict, but because you're afraid of their reaction. That's not communication. That's survival. Fifth sign, they struggle with deep connections. At first, everything feels normal. Conversations flow. There's laughter. There's attention. But over time, something feels missing. You can't go deeper. Serious conversations feel uncomfortable. Vulnerability gets avoided. They keep things on the surface because depth requires emotional awareness. And without that, connection stays shallow. You feel alone even when you're with them. And that kind of loneliness, it's the heaviest one. Sixth sign, they don't understand their own emotions. This is the one people overlook the most, Because how can someone understand you if they don't understand themselves? They get angry but don't know why. They feel distant but can't explain it. They shut down instead of opening up. And when emotions feel confusing, they avoid them completely. They distract themselves. They ignore feelings. They suppress everything. But unprocessed emotions don't disappear. They leak out in behavior, in tone, in reactions. And that's when things start breaking. Conversations, trust, relationships. Now here's the twist. Low emotional intelligence doesn't always look toxic. Sometimes it looks normal. It looks like someone who just isn't expressive. Someone who doesn't like drama. Someone who says, "I'm just being real." But being real without awareness can hurt people. And the hardest part, most people with low emotional intelligence don't even realize it, because awareness is exactly what's missing. So what do you do with this? If you see these signs in someone else, you don't need to hate them, but you do need to understand your limits. Not everyone can meet you emotionally, and that's not something you can fix for them. And if you saw yourself in some of these signs, that's not a failure. That's awareness. And awareness is where change begins. Because emotional intelligence isn't something you're born with. It's something you build, slowly, painfully, honestly, by asking yourself hard questions, by listening more than reacting, by choosing growth over ego. So next time you feel misunderstood, don't rush to silence yourself. Pause. Ask, am I being too sensitive, or am I just expecting emotional understanding from someone who doesn't have it yet? That answer might change everything.